He was a man who owned the world. A millionaire whose name was enough to open doors, win contracts, and command respect. People bowed when he entered a room, and women admired him like he was untouchable. But behind his sharp suits and expensive smile, there was something else: boredom. Life had given him everything, yet he felt empty. The parties, the cars, the mansions, none of it gave him joy anymore. He wanted something different, something shocking, something that would make people talk. One evening, at a luxury party inside a five-star hotel, he was surrounded by music, laughter, and flashing lights. Waiters moved around with trays, serving drinks and food to the rich guests. Among them was a simple girl, a waitress with tired eyes and quiet steps. She was not dressed in silk or diamonds. She wore a plain uniform and carried herself with dignity, even as she served people who barely noticed her. Her face was calm, almost emotionless, but her eyes held a depth no one could ignore, if only someone cared to look. The millionaire noticed her. At first, it was just a passing glance. But as she moved through the crowd, her silence drew his attention. She was different from the fake laughter and empty smiles around him. She did not try to impress, she did not even look at him. She simply did her job, quietly and carefully. And in that moment, an idea formed in his restless mind. He called her over. She stood before him, her tray balanced in her hands, her posture straight. She didn't blush, didn't stammer, didn't try to charm him like others did. She only asked politely, "Would you like something, sir?" He studied her face, and then, with a smirk, he said something that shocked not just her, but everyone within hearing distance. "Marry me." The music seemed to stop. Guests froze, whispers filled the hall. The waitress blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Excuse me?" she asked softly. "You heard me," he said, leaning back casually in his chair. "I want to marry you. Right here, right now. What do you say?" The crowd gasped. Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others pulled out their phones to record the moment. A millionaire proposing to a waitress? It sounded like madness. But the man was serious. For him, it was a game. He wanted to shock the world, to do something unexpected. He wanted to see how far his power could go. Everyone expected the waitress to run, to refuse, to laugh nervously. But she didn't. She looked into his eyes for a long moment. Her face remained calm, but inside, her heart was racing. She thought about her life, about the struggles she faced every day, about the battles no one saw. And then, in a voice steady and clear, she answered, "Yes." The hall erupted. Guests gasped louder, some laughed, some whispered rumors already forming. No one could believe what they had just heard. The millionaire smiled. He had not expected such a quick answer, but it only made the game more exciting. Within days, the news spread everywhere. "Millionaire marries waitress" became the headline of every newspaper, the gossip of every social circle. Some called it romantic, some called it madness, and some whispered it was just a publicity stunt. The wedding happened fast. There were no fairy lights, no golden decorations, no grand ceremonies. It was quick, sudden, almost careless. The millionaire wore his expensive suit, the waitress wore a simple white dress that was borrowed, not bought. As he placed the ring on her finger, he smirked, almost amused. For him, this was entertainment, a way to escape his boredom. He thought, let's see how long this game lasts. But her eyes told a different story. She didn't smile, she didn't laugh, she didn't show excitement. She simply stood there, calm and quiet, as if this was not a dream, not a shock, but a decision. The guests whispered again. Why did she say yes? Does she love his money? Is she hiding something? The millionaire himself wondered the same. Why had she agreed so easily? Did she not fear him? Did she not question his strange proposal? That night, as they stood together in the mansion, he poured himself a drink and looked at her. "You really surprised me," he said with a smirk. "Most girls would faint, cry, or scream with joy. But you just said yes like it was nothing." She looked at him calmly. Some choices are simple, she replied. Her words made him pause. He laughed lightly, but deep inside, he felt unsettled. She was not playing the game the way he expected. And for the first time, he felt something strange. Curiosity. He thought this marriage would be fun, a story to tell. But her silence, her calmness, her mysterious acceptance, it made him wonder. Why did she agree? What was she hiding? He didn't know then, but the answer to that question would soon change everything. This was the beginning of a story that started as a joke, but would end in a way neither of them could ever imagine. The wedding was over. The world was still talking. Newspapers printed headlines, magazines ran stories, and social media was full of pictures. Millionaire marries a waitress had become the most unbelievable gossip of the year. But inside the mansion, away from the flashing cameras, reality looked very different. The millionaire thought marriage would feel exciting. He imagined his new wife would be overwhelmed by the luxury, rushing to try on jewelry, exploring the mansion, asking for expensive gifts, maybe even bragging about her new life. But she did none of that. From the first day, she stayed silent. She moved through the grand halls like a quiet shadow. She wore the clothes he gave her, but never asked for more. She ate her meals without fuss, spoke only when necessary, and never raised her voice. Her silence was not like shyness. It was different. It was heavy. As if every word she swallowed carried a story she refused to tell. At dinners, he would try to talk. So, what do you want now? A car? A credit card? A diamond necklace? She would only shake her head gently. I don't need anything. Her reply irritated him. Every woman he had met wanted something. Money, gifts, attention. But she wanted nothing. The millionaire laughed it off at first. Maybe she's just pretending. Maybe she'll show her real colors later. But as days turned into weeks, her silence grew louder. When he took her to social events, she sat quietly, answering questions politely but never opening her heart. When other wives bragged about their designer clothes, she only smiled faintly. When people whispered cruel things about her, calling her a gold digger, a poor girl pretending to be a queen, she never reacted. The millionaire began to feel restless. He was used to controlling every situation, but with her, he felt powerless. She never argued, never demanded, never revealed anything. At night, he would sometimes watch her from a distance. She would stand by the window, looking out at the city lights, her face unreadable. What was she thinking? Why did her eyes look so far away, as if she was in another world? One evening, he finally asked her. Why are you always so quiet? He said, his tone sharp. Are you unhappy here? Do you hate this life? She turned to him slowly, her eyes calm. No, I don't hate it. Then what is it? He pressed. What's going on in your head? Why don't you speak? Her lips curved into the faintest smile, but her voice was steady. Sometimes silence is easier than words. He stared at her, confused. What did that mean? What was she hiding behind that silence? The millionaire felt something unusual stirring inside him. At first, he married her for fun, for shock, for a story to tell. But now, he found himself watching her closely, studying her silence like it was a puzzle he had to solve. Her quietness was not weakness. It was strength. It was as if she was carrying something heavy, but she refused to let anyone see. And that disturbed him. Because for the first time, he realized, he was not in control of this marriage. She was. Not with power, not with wealth, but with silence. Days turned into nights, nights into weeks. She continued her life in the mansion without drama, without greed. The maids whispered about her kindness, the staff respected her soft nature. Everyone noticed one thing. Unlike other wives of the rich, she treated them like humans, not servants. But the millionaire noticed something else. Every evening, at the same time, she would disappear for a few hours. She never told him where she went. She never asked permission. She would leave quietly and return just as quietly, her face calm, her clothes sometimes carrying the faint smell of antiseptic, like a hospital. At first, he ignored it. But soon, curiosity began to eat at him. Where did she go? Who was she meeting? Why was she hiding this from him? The silence that once amused him had now turned into a mystery. One night, he told himself, I will find out. I need to know what secret she is keeping from me. And so, without telling her, he prepared to follow her. What he was about to discover would begin to change everything. The millionaire had grown restless. His wife's silence was no longer just strange, it was suspicious. Every evening, around the same hour, she would quietly leave the mansion. No explanations, no excuses. She would simply step out, vanish for hours, and return late at night. At first, he tried to ignore it. But curiosity soon became an itch he could not scratch. He was a man used to control, used to knowing everything. And now, in his own house, he was being left in the dark. One night, he decided to follow her. He waited until she left the mansion, dressed simply, her steps light, almost hurried. She didn't take a chauffeur or one of the luxury cars. Instead, she slipped into the busy streets like an ordinary woman. The millionaire kept his distance, his heart beating faster than he expected. She walked past markets, past crowded alleys, far away from the glamorous city center. Finally, she stopped at a small, run-down hospital. The millionaire froze. A hospital. He watched her enter through the worn doors, her face softening for the first time that day. Inside, the smell of medicine and disinfectant filled the air. He followed quietly, careful not to be seen. Then he saw her. In a dim hospital room, she stood beside a bed where a young boy lay weak and pale. The boy's breathing was shallow, his skin thin, his eyes half closed as if life itself was slipping away. She moved closer, brushing the boy's hair gently, her lips whispering words of comfort. A smile touched her face, but her eyes glistened with tears she fought to hide. The millionaire's chest tightened. This woman, his wife, looked so different here. In his mansion, she was silent, distant, unreadable. But here, she was alive, tender, and full of unspoken love. He stepped back, struggling to understand. Who was this boy? Why was she here every night? The doctor entered, flipping through a chart. He spoke softly, but the millionaire was close enough to hear. His condition is serious. Without proper treatment, it will be difficult. The medicines are expensive. I don't know how much longer you can manage. The woman nodded silently, her shoulders trembling for just a second. I will find a way, she whispered. Please, just keep helping him. The doctor sighed, placing a hand on her shoulder before leaving. The millionaire stood frozen in the hallway. His mind was spinning. So this was her secret. She wasn't sneaking away to meet someone in secret. She wasn't hiding luxury or greed. She was carrying a burden far heavier, someone's life. That night, when she returned to the mansion, her face was calm again. The silence returned, like a mask she wore to hide her struggle. She did not notice that her husband's eyes followed her closely, filled now not only with suspicion, but also confusion. For the first time, the millionaire felt something unusual in his chest. Guilt. He had married her for fun, for entertainment, for a story to tell the world. But she had walked into this strange marriage while carrying a secret pain he could never have imagined. That night, he could not sleep. He kept hearing the boy's weak breathing, her soft whispers, the doctor's warning. He stared at the ceiling, asking himself questions he had never asked before. Why didn't she tell him? Why did she keep it a secret? Was she afraid he would laugh? Or was it something deeper, that she didn't trust him at all? The next morning, he looked at her differently. She sat at the breakfast table, quietly sipping her tea, her eyes tired but steady. She didn't notice the way he studied her, trying to read the lines on her face. He wanted to ask her directly, but he stopped himself. Something told him that her silence was not weakness, it was protection. And so, he decided not to confront her. Not yet. But deep inside, he made another decision. He would follow her again. He would keep watching. Because now, it was no longer a game. He needed to know the whole truth. What was her real story? Who was the boy in that hospital bed? And how long had she been carrying this secret alone? The millionaire had played with life, treating marriage like entertainment. But now, life was playing with him, slowly showing him a truth that was bigger than his wealth, bigger than his power, bigger than himself. And he was not ready for the answer. The mansion was the same, golden chandeliers, marble floors, servants moving quietly. But for the millionaire, everything felt different now. He could no longer look at his wife the same way. Every time he saw her calm face, he remembered the dim hospital room. He remembered the boy's weak smile, the doctor's warning, and her trembling voice whispering promises she was desperate to keep. The silence she carried was no longer a puzzle to him, it was a shield. A shield built to protect her pain. At first, he wanted to expose her secret, to confront her, to demand answers. But something inside him stopped him. Instead, he began to watch her carefully. He noticed the little things. The way she treated the servants with respect, thanking them softly even when they made mistakes. The way she ate simply, never wasting food, never demanding more. The way she smiled gently at children whenever she saw them in the streets. She was different. Unlike the people in his world, loud, greedy, desperate for attention. She carried herself with quiet dignity. She did not ask for wealth, yet she worked silently every night to save someone she loved. And slowly, the millionaire felt something he had never felt before. Admiration. He found himself waiting for her words, hoping she would share something with him. But she remained guarded, her silence wrapping around her like armor. One evening, they sat together at dinner. The table was full of rich food, crystal glasses, and golden plates. He watched her carefully. "You never ask for anything," he said casually, trying to sound amused. "Do you realize you're married to one of the richest men in the city? Don't you want to enjoy it?" She looked at him, her eyes calm as always. Enjoyment doesn't always come from money. Her words struck him harder than he expected. Later that night, he found her again standing by the window, staring at the city lights. He stepped closer, his voice softer this time. "Why do I feel like you're far away, even when you're standing right here?" She turned, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Because sometimes the heart is where it's needed the most." He didn't understand fully, but the weight of her words stayed with him. The following nights, he could not stop himself. He followed her again, back to the hospital. And once more, he saw her with the boy. This time, he stayed longer. He watched as she fed him soup with gentle hands, wiped his forehead with a damp cloth, and whispered stories to make him smile. He saw her eyes fill with tears when the boy coughed, but she never cried in front of him. She was strong, for the boy, if not for herself. Something inside the millionaire cracked. He had always thought love was about beauty, about attraction, about power. But here, he saw love in its truest form. A sister's sacrifice. A woman's strength. The more he watched, the more he realized he was changing. The arrogant man who had once married her for fun now found himself wanting to protect her. He wanted to ease her pain, to share her burden, to break through the silence she carried like a prison. But he also feared something. If she discovered that he knew her secret, would she hate him? Would she see him as a stranger who had been spying instead of a husband who cared? And so, he kept quiet. Instead, he started showing her small kindnesses. He offered her his car when she left at night, though she refused politely. He asked her about her day, even though she rarely gave details. He stayed longer at the dinner table, hoping she would open up. And slowly, very slowly, something began to shift. Her silence grew softer. She still didn't reveal her secret, but sometimes, when she looked at him, her eyes carried less distance. Sometimes, her faint smile lingered a little longer. Sometimes, when he spoke kindly, she listened without turning away. For the first time, the millionaire felt something new inside his chest, a warmth that no amount of wealth had ever given him. But even as the connection grew, the mystery remained. Because no matter how much softer she became, she never spoke of the hospital, never mentioned the boy, never explained her late-night disappearances. And that silence, though less heavy now, still carried a question that haunted him every night. Who is he to her? And why is she carrying this burden alone? The millionaire knew one thing. He was falling in love. Truly, deeply, for the first time in his life. But he also knew, love alone would not be enough. Sooner or later, the truth would have to come out. And when it did, everything would change. The millionaire had tried to stay patient. He had tried to let her silence guide him, hoping that one day she would trust him enough to share her secret. But weeks passed, and she still carried the same calm mask. She still left every evening, still returned quietly, and still pretended nothing was unusual. The millionaire could not take it anymore. One night, he followed her again, but this time, he went further. He entered the hospital, walked down the same hallway he had memorized, and stopped at the same room. He stood outside the door and watched. Inside, she sat beside the boy, holding his hand. The boy looked even weaker now. His eyes were half closed, his breathing shallow. She wiped his forehead gently, her lips whispering promises. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm here. I won't leave you. You'll be fine. Just hold on a little longer." The millionaire felt his chest tighten. He had never heard her voice so tender, so full of pain and love. Then the doctor entered. This time, his words were heavier. "We need to discuss the bills," he said. "The medicine and treatment are very costly. If payments are delayed, we cannot continue much longer." The woman's eyes filled with tears, though she tried to blink them away. She nodded quickly. "I will find the money. Please, don't stop his treatment. He is all I have." "All you have?" the doctor repeated softly. She looked at the boy with trembling lips. "Yes. He is my younger brother. Since our parents died, I have been both his mother and father. I cannot lose him." The words stabbed the millionaire's heart. Her younger brother. The truth hit him like a storm. She had agreed to his sudden marriage, not for love, not for wealth, not for a dream, but for her brother's survival. Every silent step she took, every quiet smile, every late-night disappearance, it was all for him. She had sacrificed her pride, her freedom, even her future, just to save the boy lying in that bed. The millionaire stepped back, his chest heavy with guilt. He remembered the night of the proposal. His smirk, his arrogance, his words, "Marry me, right here, right now." He had treated it like a game. A way to escape boredom. Entertainment. But for her, it had never been a game. It had been a desperate choice. She didn't marry him for money. She married him because she had no other way to save her brother's life. And the realization broke him. For the first time in his life, he hated himself. His wealth, his arrogance, his selfishness, it all felt worthless compared to the sacrifice she had made. That night, he returned to the mansion before her. He poured himself a drink, but it burned his throat. He sat in silence, staring at the empty walls, haunted by her words. "He is all I have." When she finally came back, her face calm as always, he could barely look at her. She noticed. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. He forced a smile, hiding the storm inside him. "Yes. Just tired." But inside, he was breaking. For days, he couldn't stop thinking about her secret. He replayed every moment, the calm way she said yes to his proposal, the silence she carried, the faint smile she gave when people mocked her. She had endured everything, not for herself, but for her brother. And he had mocked her life by treating her as part of his game. The guilt was unbearable. But something else grew inside him too, something stronger than guilt. Love. He had admired her before. He had respected her strength. But now, knowing the truth, his feelings transformed. He no longer saw her as just his silent wife. He saw her as the bravest person he had ever known. He wanted to protect her, to stand by her, to give her the life she deserved. Not because of pity. Not because of guilt. But because he had fallen in love with a woman who carried so much pain with so much dignity. But one question tortured him. Would she ever forgive him if she learned the truth? That for him, this marriage had started as nothing but a joke? The thought made him shiver. He knew he could not confess it now. If she discovered his arrogance, she would never forgive him. She would never let him near her heart. And so, he made a silent promise to himself. He would help her brother. He would carry her burden. He would change everything. Not as a game. Not as entertainment. But as a man who finally understood what love really meant. The millionaire who once believed money could buy anything now realized, money could never buy the strength of a woman's sacrifice or the love she carried for her brother. And as he looked at her across the dinner table that night, her face calm as always, he whispered inside his heart, "I will not let you suffer alone anymore. Even if you never forgive me, I will love you. And I will save him." But he knew, the journey ahead would not be easy. Because secrets, once revealed, always change everything. The millionaire's heart was no longer the same. His mansion still glittered, his cars still shined, his bank accounts still overflowed, but none of it mattered. What haunted him now was the image of her brother lying weak in that hospital bed, and the quiet strength of the woman who had married him only to save a life. For the first time, he wanted to use his wealth not for power, not for pride, but for love. The very next morning, he made the calls. He arranged the best doctors, the best treatment, the best medicine money could buy. Within days, the boy's room transformed from a dim corner of suffering into a place of hope. Machines were brought in, nurses checked regularly, and new medicine began its work. But he did it all in silence. He never told her. He never said, "I am paying for it." He only watched from the shadows, making sure everything was done. Because he knew, if she found out, she might think it was pity, and her pride would break. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the boy's health began to improve. His cheeks showed a faint color again. His smile returned, weak but real. The woman's eyes still carried worry, but now, there was also a flicker of relief. One evening, she returned home earlier than usual. She walked into the mansion, her face pale, her steps trembling. He looked up, alarmed. What happened? She stared at him, her lips shaking. The doctors, they said everything is paid for. The treatment, the medicine, all of it. They said, someone has already taken care of everything. Her eyes filled with tears. She stepped closer, whispering, "It was you, wasn't it?" For a long moment, he said nothing. His chest tightened. He had wanted to keep it a secret, but now her gaze pierced through him. Finally, he nodded. Yes. Her tears spilled. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" For him. He stood slowly, walking closer, his voice softer than she had ever heard before. "Because no one should carry a burden alone. Because your silence spoke louder than words. And because," he paused, his eyes wet, "because somewhere along the way, I stopped playing a game. I fell in love with you." Her breath caught. She looked at him, stunned. He continued, his voice breaking. "When I asked you to marry me, it was out of arrogance. Out of boredom. I thought it was fun to shock the world. But you shocked me. You showed me what real strength looks like. You taught me what sacrifice means. And now, all I want is to be the man you deserve." Her tears fell harder. She turned away, covering her face. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I never wanted pity. I never wanted anyone to see me weak." He gently reached for her hands, pulling them away from her face. "This is not weakness," he said firmly. "This is love. And love is the strongest thing in the world." For the first time since their marriage, her silence broke, not with words, but with sobs. She cried openly, letting years of pain and struggle pour out. And he held her, not as a millionaire, not as a man of power, but as someone who finally understood her heart. In the weeks that followed, her brother's condition improved steadily. The doctors gave hopeful news, and the boy's laughter slowly returned. The woman who once stood like stone began to smile more often, her eyes lighter, her voice warmer. And the millionaire? He changed completely. He no longer saw wealth as a toy. He no longer chased empty pleasures. His joy now was in simple things: her smile, her trust, her brother's laughter. One quiet evening, as they stood by the same window where she used to stare in silence, he took her hand gently. "Do you regret saying yes to me that night?" he asked softly. She looked at him, her eyes glistening, but this time, there was no distance in them. Only warmth. She shook her head slowly. "No. Because if I hadn't, I would never have known this side of you." He smiled, his chest full. "And if I hadn't, I would never have known what love really is." The story that began as a game had turned into something real. The millionaire who once thought marriage was entertainment now understood that marriage was sacrifice, trust, and love. And the waitress who once married only to save her brother now had a partner who stood beside her, not in arrogance, but in devotion. Together, they had transformed pain into hope, silence into love, and a strange marriage into a story that would live in their hearts forever.